There we go. So I found a little pocket back here. They've been real finicky this morning. This is the first one I've got so far, first bite. Nice little chunky spotted bass. And I find about what I can get them on right now is a Ned Rig. And what I did was I sit down and tied a 6-pound test leader on to make it even more finessey. I was using an 8-pound test. I went ahead and tied the 6-pound test on. That's why I let him fight a while. Hopefully I'll get some more. Wintertime can be tough, but before I had a boat, which is about 3 years ago, most of my wintertime fishing, I fish for a lot of trout. And now that I have a boat, I get out here and I fish for bass in the winter. And so I'm still learning. I'm still learning about wintertime fishing. It's probably, as far as seasonal bass fishing, winter's going to be the weakest one for me because I've done the least amount of it. But I'm out here, I'm learning something every time, looking for little pockets of bait, and that seems to be helping me catch some on this Ned Rig. Well, they're not always big. Little Ned Rig right here with a red head on it. I just took a piece of a 4-inch yum dinger and cut it in half. And that's how I've been getting some of them today. These spotted bass, I tell you, I love fishing for these things in the winter. Nice chunky spotted bass. He's cold. Water temperature out here, it's only 56, and got him on a Ned Rig. If you're at a lake that is predominantly largemouth bass, largemouth bass in colder water can be a little more difficult to catch. It's Dalton, everybody, just introduce myself again. But they can be a little more difficult to catch, and I'm not sure about the whole metabolism thing. There's kind of a lot of debate on whether their metabolism slows down or it doesn't slow down. I'm not 100% sure. But what I am sure of is the metabolism of the bait they're eating does slow down. Crawdads slow down, the bait fish slow down, some of them die off. And it just seems the colder water slows that bait down. So what I do in the wintertime is I don't fish for largemouth as much. Now I should, because that's when you can get your personal best largemouth a lot of times, is that time of the year. But I'm a fisherman, I like catching fish. So in the winter, I tend to spend my winter out at this lake because it's loaded with spotted bass. And spotted bass to me are a better winter bass. I compare it this way. I look at a largemouth bass as a bodybuilder and the spotted bass as a marathon runner. The largemouth bass, he may only eat one time a day, one time every few days, and generally it's going to be the biggest meal that he can eat. Where a spotted bass, their metabolism seems so much higher, and they can eat several times throughout the day, even in the cold winter. Another thing, a largemouth bass will tend to find ambush points. If there's an area of cover for that bass could spend his whole life there if he's not run off. A spotted bass are not as much of a resident bass. Their residence is wherever the bait is. So all winter long, they're going to be chasing bait around. I came back to this little pocket. There's not a whole lot of bait back here, but as I was scanning around, one of them jumped over here and I might have caught him, and I just threw out a little Ned Rig. And that's another thing, in the wintertime, make sure that you have a small bait tied on, super finesse for catching some of these bass. Well, I hope the video helps. If you're struggling at a lake with catching largemouth bass, and there's a lake nearby that you can get to that has spotted bass, go try the spotted bass. They're an awesome winter bass. Thanks for tuning in. I'll talk to you soon.